You're driving home. Nothing dramatic. Red light, green light, quiet road. And then the lights come on behind you. You pull over, you cut the engine, you wait. The officer walks up slowly, reaches your window, looks at you for a half-second longer than feels comfortable. And then he asks it. Do you have a gun in the vehicle? 4 words. And just like that, your stomach drops. Because here's what most people do in that exact moment. They answer, immediately, without thinking. Either they say yes and start explaining, or they say no and start reassuring him. They talk, they fill the silence, they try to be helpful. And in that split second, without knowing it, they just handed that officer something he can use against them for the rest of that stop. Every single day, tens of thousands of drivers hear that exact question during a traffic stop, and almost every single one of them answers it the wrong way. Not because they're guilty of anything, not because they're hiding anything, but because nobody ever told them what that question actually does, legally, the moment it leaves an officer's mouth. Because by the time a cop asks you about a gun, that stop is no longer a routine traffic stop. Something has already shifted. A legal threshold has already been crossed in the officer's mind. And what you say in the next 10 seconds determines whether you drive home tonight or whether that interaction goes somewhere else entirely. I've reviewed over 400 traffic stop cases, body cam videos, and police reports where the question, "Do you have a gun?" was the pivot point for everything that followed. The vehicle searches, the prolonged detentions, the escalated encounters, the arrests. All of it traced back to one moment and one answer that the driver gave without understanding what they were walking into. I'm a criminal defense attorney. I've spent over 15 years handling exactly these kinds of cases. Traffic stops that should have been over in 3 minutes and turned into something no one in that car was prepared for. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly why that question is more legally loaded than it sounds, show you the constitutional protection most people don't know they already have, and give you the exact words to say, calmly, legally, and without making anything worse. Stay with me through every point, because point number 3 covers something that even legally armed, licensed gun owners get completely wrong, and it's the version that gets people arrested most often. This is educational content to help you understand your rights. For guidance specific to your situation, consult a licensed attorney in your jurisdiction. Let's get into it. To understand why that question is so legally loaded, you need to understand a case that changed the entire framework of police encounters in this country. It's called Terry versus Ohio, decided by the United States Supreme Court in 1968, and more than 50 years later, it is still the legal foundation for almost everything that happens during a traffic stop. Here's what happened. A veteran detective named Martin McFadden was working plainclothes patrol in downtown Cleveland when he observed 2 men, John Terry and another individual, repeatedly walking past a store, peering into the window and conferring with each other. McFadden had over 30 years of experience. He believed, based on what he was watching, that these men were casing the store for a robbery. He approached them, identified himself as a police officer, and patted down the outside of their clothing. He felt a weapon. He reached in and found a concealed firearm. Terry's attorney argued the search was unconstitutional, that McFadden had no probable cause to search him. The case went all the way to the Supreme Court, and in an 8-1 decision, the court ruled that a police officer can stop and briefly detain a person based on reasonable suspicion, a standard significantly lower than probable cause that criminal activity may be afoot. That decision created what we now call a Terry stop. Here's what that means for you in plain language. The moment an officer develops what the law considers reasonable suspicion, his authority over that encounter expands. He can detain you. He can ask questions beyond the scope of the traffic violation, and critically, he can conduct a limited pat-down of your outer clothing if he believes you may be armed and dangerous. Now here's where the gun question comes in. When an officer asks, "Do you have a gun in the vehicle?" he is not making small talk. He is doing one of 2 things legally. Either he is trying to establish reasonable suspicion where he doesn't yet have it, or he already believes he has it and he's asking to confirm it on the record before he acts. If you say yes, You have just handed him the justification for an immediate Terry frisk and potentially a full search of your vehicle. If you say no and he later finds a weapon, you've now introduced a potential false statement into the encounter. And here's the part most people never consider. The Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution gives you the absolute right to remain silent during a police encounter. That right doesn't disappear during a traffic stop. It doesn't disappear because an officer asks a direct question, and it most certainly doesn't disappear because answering feels like the polite thing to do. Terry gave officers expanded authority, but the Fifth Amendment draws the line at what you are required to say. You are not required to answer that question, not legally, not constitutionally, not under any circumstance. That is the foundation everything else in this video is built on. Here's the trap most drivers fall into, and I want you to recognize yourself in this because it happens to good, intelligent, completely law-abiding people every single day. The officer asks the question, and the driver's brain immediately goes into cooperation mode. They think, I have nothing to hide. I'll just be honest. That's the fastest way through this. So they answer, fully, voluntarily, sometimes even helpfully. Yes, I have a firearm. It's in the glove box. I have my permit right here. Or, no weapons, nothing like that. You can check if you want. And in both cases, that driver just made the stop significantly more complicated than it needed to be. Because here's what they don't know. Answering that question doesn't make you safer. It doesn't make the stop shorter. It doesn't signal cooperation in any way that legally benefits you. What it does is give the officer new information he did not have 30 seconds ago, that he is now legally permitted to act on. The drivers who understand their rights don't answer that question because they're hiding something. They don't answer it because they're hostile or uncooperative. They don't answer it because they have a criminal record or bad intentions. They don't answer it because they understand, clearly, calmly, and without any drama, that the Fifth Amendment means they don't have to, and that invoking it is not suspicious. It is not an admission of anything. Courts have repeatedly affirmed that exercising a constitutional right cannot be used as the basis for reasonable suspicion. Nobody taught us this. It wasn't in driver education. It wasn't in any handbook. And that gap between what people assume is safe and what the law actually protects is exactly where these stops go wrong. Mistake number 1, answering yes and immediately explaining yourself. Picture this. You're pulled over for a broken taillight. Routine stop. The officer reaches your window, runs through the standard exchange, license, registration, and then pauses. Do you have any weapons in the vehicle tonight? You have a legally registered firearm in your console. You have a valid concealed carry permit in your wallet. So you do what feels like the responsible thing. You say yes, you tell him exactly where it is, you tell him you have a permit, and you reach toward the console to show him. Most people do this because they believe transparency equals safety. They've been told their whole lives that if you cooperate fully, nothing bad can happen. And they genuinely think that disclosing a legal firearm, proactively and completely, is the fastest way to put the officer at ease and end the stop. Here's the legal reality. The moment you said yes and identified the location of that firearm, you gave him grounds to secure the weapon for the duration of the stop. In many jurisdictions, officers are trained to immediately retrieve and hold any disclosed firearm, legal or not, while the encounter continues. That retrieval is not an arrest. It doesn't require probable cause. It falls under officer safety, and courts have consistently upheld it. Now your legal firearm is in the officer's hands. The stop, which was about a taillight, has shifted entirely. New questions follow. New justifications emerge. What started as a 3-minute stop is now something else entirely. The correct move is this. Stay completely still, do not reach for anything, and say calmly, "Officer, I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right to remain silent." One sentence, no elaboration, no explanation, no apology, no reaching for anything. Hands visible on the steering wheel, eyes forward, voice calm and level. Not aggressive, not hostile, not confrontational, constitutional. You are not admitting anything. You are not refusing a lawful order. You are exercising a right that the United States Supreme Court has affirmed to every citizen, in every traffic stop in this country. Say it once, then stop talking. If the officer asks again, and some will, you say it again, exactly the same way, same 12 words, same calm tone. Officer, I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. Memorize it, because the side of a road at night is not the time to try to remember it. If this video helped you, hit subscribe. We cover exactly this kind of legal education every week, rights you already have but never taught to use. This content is educational only. It does not constitute legal advice. For guidance specific to your situation, consult a licensed attorney in your jurisdiction. Stay safe out there.